going in with that, transitioning to what Whitmer had talked about, about furthering your education, I think is important. I think it's also at the same time dependable on your career aspirations. Like my career aspirations, pretty much, I don't have to, but getting a degree, a master's degree, enhances my opportunities tenfold on what I can apply for, my possible starting salary, and all that kind of jazz. So with getting that higher level puts me above others. Will be like, someone says, for example, if Jeffrey and I were applying to the same position, had the same amount of work years and the same amount of concepts. He has an undergrad, I have an undergrad, but he doesn't have a master's, but I do. I'm not saying I would get chosen over him, but there's a higher probability of me because of that higher level of education. Because if we applied to the same position and my master's was in that position,
right,
it's more likely they would choose me because I have experience, not necessarily work experience, but academia experience in that. So again, I think it's all dependable on what your major is and what your aspirations is. If you want to go ahead, I say go for it. It's expensive. I'm telling you that right now. It's hard.
Yeah, college in
general is expensive. It's hard. Definitely not easy. There's a lot of readings. Larger vocabularies are being used. Like when I first began, I didn't know some of the words in the sentences, and I didn't know how to pronounce them, so I had to Google them. They're more dense to read rather than some undergrad readings. You could be just like, I'm going to fly through these 4 chapters.
Yeah.
Now I'm like learning. Really now it's like a lot of
and have more patience.
It's not even more pages. Like, still in the normal 20 to 30 page chapters, but there's so much information. It's so dense with so much analytical information that's in there that you can't just read and understand. You have to read it, break it down, and comprehend it.
Right. That's what I'm saying with patience. It's a lot more complex than what you would read in undergrad, but it's like you mentioned, you read it, comprehend it, but also just break it down to fully understand like the entire aspect of it.
Yeah, like an undergrad, I'd be able to read a chapter of a book of the same kind of material and be able to write a 5-page paper on it like that. Yeah. Now it's like, okay, I have to break it down, to dissect the information, and be able to apply it to my 2 to 4 page paper. And it's harder.
Yeah.
It's just as like my writing style hasn't changed per se so far, but definitely reading the material has. I'm definitely become more, like reading it and trying to actually understand and dissect what it means, because I'm gonna have to apply it to in-class lectures and in my papers. And so the professors are more looking for not necessarily how many pages can you write, what can you apply it to, examples, but can you actually understand what the content was and concept of the chapter, and pull it from the chapter and apply it, rather than just write me a 5-page paper applying all the principles. They're like, all right, I want you to pick one principle, one concept, and apply it. And you have to pull that 2 to 4 pages for me.
Yeah.
And make it into, so I find myself, like I said, writing the same way, but higher vocabulary. I'm using instead of, debating, I'm using, or, weakening, I'm using mitigating, or I'm using debilitating. Like the word I read the other day. I'm just debating.
You mean debating?
Debating. So I'm using those type of words. That's what I'm doing, just because it makes my paper flow a little bit easier, nicer, maybe, however you want to,
it flows better.
Yeah, however you want to view it. So in the end, I of course, I'm in a higher level of education at the moment. So I'm going to go for it. I'm going to say yes to it. But I also always say, be prepared mentally to handle it if you're working full time, because it is hard.
It's work on top of the work that you just got done.
So for a good example of this, and most of the time, my week is work 8 hours a day, maybe take an hour break after work just to relax, because I'm staring at a computer for 8 hours. And then I maybe do an hour and a half, 2 hours more work. But if I have class, I'll sit on Zoom for 3 hours. So at that point, if I have class and work at the same day, I'm looking at a screen for 11 and a half hours a day.
Yeah, like you're Yeah, I'm sure it's exhausting.
So it's not physically exhausting, it's mentally draining. Times where I'm like, I don't want to do schoolwork. Like today, I didn't want to do schoolwork. I did. That's just what it is.
It kind of goes to that part where, like, as much as you don't want to do it, you don't really have a choice. You got to get it done.
It's about the end game. That's how I keep doing. Like I went through like
I wasn't going to say anything until you said that.
Like I did it with the mindset, okay, embrace the suck. I know for these next 2 years doing schoolwork full time, doing work full time and schoolwork part time, it's gonna suck.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be a fun time. I'm gonna enjoy it. I'm gonna enjoy the classwork and all that, but it's not gonna be technically a fun time. Mm-hmm. So I went into the mindset knowing that. So when I do get to some hard times where I'm tired, work was a rough week this week, and I start to do 10 hours of schoolwork. And I don't want to, but I go back to the thought process of, okay, what will this do for me in the end?
Mm-hmm.
How will this help me? And then that's just kind of how you got to get through it. It's just, and right. it can that same thing can be applied to undergrad, but definitely where I am at the moment, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I come from on the concept of going to a higher level of education. It all depends on what you want to do with your life. What do you want your career to be, and if you just want it. I know some of my friends, for my last kind of little part about this, some of my friends didn't want a higher degree and don't need it. They just wanted to prove that they could.
Right.
There's something in mind like, hey, I want to prove I could do this. Mm-hmm. I could prove I could get through whatever higher level of education than just undergrad. It might have nothing to do with what they want to do, but they wanted to prove something for whatever reason. I'm like, go ahead. So I think it's all circumstances, but I'd say do it if you want to. Just be prepared for a lot of work. That's what I say.
It is a lot of work, and that is one thing we've talked about a lot too. And something you talked about too is that, at least in terms of what you've kind of been doing, and that
I'm also only 3 classes in though, so like
true.
I'm not saying I'm like it's only it's a 10 course class, 30 credits, 2 years. So I'm not saying I'm already 5 classes in. I'm only 3 in, so I'm just started.
Yeah,
but it's still the same thing.
Yeah.
Anyways,
sorry.
Before I was interrupted.
Sorry.
Wow, Brian.
Was that payback for the shot earlier?
That'll be coming later.
Shots.
Oh, it wasn't the destruction. My ass getting kicked in.
I whooped his ass in 2K in Madden.
He did.
Beat him by 30 in 2K and beat him by
Brian.
30
at some point, by the way. Wait, do you only have 2K20, right?
Yeah.
You actually get 2K21 so we can play.
Oh, Jeff wants to play. How about you? How about this? I'll buy it if you play me in Madden 21.
Hell no.
All right, let Wilmer go.
Anyway,
we'll talk about that later.
There's only $10 on Amazon.
But what I was saying before is that something you talked about, and we've talked about a lot too, is that a lot of your 20s and what you're doing kind of makes sense want to be with your friends, want to do those things before you kind of immerse yourself fully into your career and doing all that stuff, which I completely understand that too, where most of your 20s are spent either getting that education, doing that, and then trying to find those times while you still can to hang out with your friends as much as you can.
Yeah. And by all means, just because I'm getting my master's, to anybody who's listening, these 2 boys, I have no clue what I'm doing with my life at all.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't either, out there.
So. Just to point that out there, I might be getting a master's, still don't know what I'm doing with my life.
That's hard to believe.
That's why you kind of take things honestly day at a time. Just see what life brings you. Like honestly, like
day at a time. That's a lot. I take it like a couple hours at a time.
Brian, sorry for you. 5 minutes at a time. Is that better?
Yeah. Seems all right.
See if you sink or swim.
But like in the end, like Whitmer said, like, yeah, I want to hear what he says. I'm really interested because Whitmer and I kind of on the same page here.
Yeah.
On the furthering.
Oh yeah.
But I want to hear the rest of yours, but I also want to hear Jeff, because Jeff's thought process and view on academics is so much different than mine personally. And you're in the middle. You're like the middle ground.
In the middle
But
ground.
between us three, it's like he's on the left side and I'm on the right side of the spectrum, and then you're sitting in the middle.
I was far away from Brian's Paul.
So I want to hear yours because you're in the middle. You're like the median,
Yes,
the
I am.
mediator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to think about that word for a second.
Sorry.
He's already trying to use this knowledge he's got.
All right, Mr. Smart Pants.
But
Don't-
I
don't use big
completely
words.
understand it from your standpoint and other friends' standpoint of wanting to further your chances of jobs and just getting the right job or that dream job or just that job you think you want at that time. Obviously, your dream changes as you get older, whatever that is. But if your dream is to get a good, decent sized job and you want to get your name out there more than what your resume may say, then go for it. Go for that master's if you want to, or if you can afford it, because it is tacking on another 2 years depending on what you do. If
Yeah.
it's obviously depending on what field you go into, like obviously if you're going into a medical field or
You have to get PhDs and stuff like that.
PhDs, you have to going in that you have to further your education, whether you want to or not.
You got it.
You have to.
Like
Yeah.
psychology, you have to basically
Yes.
get a master's degree in psychology
Yeah.
to be a counselor, do whatever you want to do.
Mhm. Whereas just the bachelor's degree is just a flat line there. But where I think we stand, and I know you're a little different on that, and that you want to still kind of the same thing of you kind of have that dream kind of job that you want to get to, but in order to get that, you pretty much need that master's in order to just be one of the guys they don't just throw away.
Yeah, I wouldn't say
Right.
I need it, but I personally believing, I think it will, astronomically help my
Yes.
chances of getting seen or whatever.
Where they don't look at that resume and go, nope.
Where, yeah, like I said, if one has an undergrad and one has a master's,
Mhm.
not saying it's gonna happen all the time, because if he has the
No.
experience over me, he's
Yeah.
gonna be looked at more than me.
Mhm.
But if we have the same experience level,
But he is.
I'm most likely going to be seen. I'm going to be picked to be interviewed over him in that very specific example.
Right. Now, for me personally, I'm not. I wouldn't do the master's program just because it's more of a headache. And for me personally, in terms of what I want to do, I don't think it would help me. It would help me in terms of getting my name out there more potentially, but I don't think it'd help me that much more than it already is. So that's kind of where I am on it. If something down the road is like, okay, maybe I should try it just to do it and see if I can figure out something a little more of along the lines or narrower path of what I want to do, maybe. But at the moment, it's a no for me with the masters. But again, obviously this is a podcast, and for the people that either listen to this or still listen to this, and that just because I don't want to doesn't mean you shouldn't. Because if you see that opportunity and you feel like, I don't know, 9 times out of 10, you probably should try it, just because it's one of those life
It's all
lessons.
circumstantial.
It's circumstantial, but it's also one of those things like when you look back into your life, do you want to be at that point? It's like, I wish that was me,
Mhm.
or I wish I did that opportunity. And that's just kind of where you are at that point. That's kind of my thinking of when you get out of college and when you get into like your early to mid to late 20s, is that are you not necessarily the right roads to go down, but make sure you go down the right ones so you don't regret what you've done or what you're doing.
Yeah, I agree.
It's very well said, Whitmer. Yeah. No, so
I was all staring at Jeff.
now we get to my turn.
This is why we
Yeah,
brought you
so
here.
the odds of me going for my master's. Ooh, how do I put this bluntly?
I'll ask in this situation. Would you rather get bitten by a rattlesnake on your balls, or
Shit.
or have someone cut your right hand off with a butter knife. Which one would you
Yes.
on the spectrum of cut your hand with a butter knife would be like go to school, get bit on the balls by like rattlesnake, not going to school.
I'd rather get burned alive.
That wasn't one of the okay.
No,
I
that wasn't
know.
a third
That
option.
wasn't a third option, but okay. He made a third option.
He did.
He chose his third. He chose the third door.
There's
Monty
no
Hall, Monty
audible.
Hall.
You can't audible in this
You
play.
can't audible.
Oh, okay.
But
Jeff
if we're
would-
being honest here, it's the knife one because it's a butter knife. It's
Yeah.
not a knife. It's not like a steak knife.
Jeff isn't. Yeah.
I don't want to answer that, but you know,
That was a really bad example, actually.
that was a horrible example. Like that's
Guys, I'm gonna actually drop out of college now because of how bad that example was.
The audience agrees.
Yeah, they're not happy.
anyway. God, but no. So yeah, no, there's no shot. There's absolutely no chance ever.
Like, nothing at all.
I'm not gonna lie.
Nothing at all. You would not go back.
Ironically, before I got the job where I was now, I was talking to someone who kind of I don't even know like what their exact profession was, but basically they're in a way they're like a quote unquote like counselor kind of thing. Because I was like just asking him like, oh, like your professional advice for like almost like a someone who like helps with like helps people.
Yeah, but they were asking if you want to do a high level education.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like printing out information for me and like, oh, like where'd you go to school? Stroudsburg, and looked at some of the programs there, and for I was there for about a cup of coffee where I went in, ordered my drink, and then before it even got to me, I left because it's like, what, nope, I'm out. Goodbye. This isn't for me because it just. Everyone who knows me, I was not a fan of school. Like I enjoyed hanging out with friends and everything. I'm glad I got my undergrad. It's something I never even thought I was actually going to even be able to do. I personally did not think even college was the answer for me. I really didn't think I was going to be able to graduate. And that's honestly, it wasn't my thing. And the fact that I do have that degree is just something I'll be always forever proud of. It's just because it's something I never thought I would actually be able to accomplish. But it was funny. My dad had texted me during the week of finals saying, hey, good luck with finals. This is your last final, unless ... you decide to go for your master's. And I just sent a GIF
Wink,
of
wink.
like the
Yeah,
more
hint, wink,
sarcastic
wink,
no in the world. Like, no. But yeah, so it's
But what's
Yeah.
the reasoning? Like, I know you don't like college and you don't like for like again, our reasoning was I think it's personally going to benefit me going forward and getting the jobs I want, or having the having the opportunity to apply and actually have a fighting chance
Sure.
against other resumes. That's what I'm going for, and that's the reasoning.
which makes sense. So, and for your case, I think that's a legitimate reason. Like, so like
That's why I
for
want to
me-
hear your person why you would say, because you're definitely like, you're definitely the one that's not going to go back, and you're not necessarily you're not against it, but in this situation you're against it.
He's against.
Right. If I was one, just a fit for school and everything like that, where school, it was actually decent enough at school where I could didn't have the attention span of a squirrel, and everything. But basically, I think like if I was in your shoes, where it's like, okay, like I would want to further my education for like my career, I think what you're doing is great for me. It's like Whitmer said, if I really want to, maybe I could, but I don't really know how much more it would help out. Now, I do agree with the fact that though, like let's say if we're both going for the same job and I only have my undergrad, but you have in this hypothetical situation, you have your master's, like they would pick you because it's like, oh, master's degree versus undergrad. A lot of companies now, like in undergrad, like nothing. At least that's what it seems like. It's like
It's normalized, which it should be.
like basically like the quote unquote norm is, oh, you have to have an undergrad and a master's to be really considered. It's so, and that's the unfortunate thing is not really, and in the college alone isn't even for everyone, like let alone going for your master's, so it's like the fact that I do have a full-time job right now, I'm very relieved and I'm very, very happy about it. But the fact that I was able to get that with just an undergrad is, hey, I'm happy with that. So, but if for whatever reason at all, I would want to go back. The only reason I could think of is if I needed it to like advance any higher in my field. But that's a pretty big if.
Right.
Yeah. But in the end, like, so you're saying no to it. You're going against it, kind of like why Whitmer said no to it. And just in this conversation, just in this conversation, I'm a yes. It's a yes or no. In this just direct conversation. I know it's not the overall general view of our mindsets, but just specific to this conversation. I'm a yes. He's a no, and you're a no.
Hey,
like how he explained it. Is it the same reasoning? Like he just doesn't feel used to at the moment.
It's very similar to what Whitmer said. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I kind of saw that the answer coming from Jeff.
Yeah.